I think something that distinguishes new Argentine cinema from old Argentine cinema is a kind of documentary approach in terms of escaping from the theatrical aura of the previous cinema. They were all intent on not being preachy, on reproducing the way people actually spoke, whereas previous cinema was a little theatrical. It had a kind of standard speech, which was the standard speech of Buenos Aires theater. So I think one of the main problems that these filmmakers faced, and Lucrecia Martel, I think, was particularly aware of this, is the problem of how to make Argentine cinema sound right. Because to them, it didn't sound right. They felt ashamed at hearing their own language on the screens. So they had different devices to find this. Pablo Trapero found an old friend of his dad who was a kind of barfly and turned him into a worker, had his own manner of speaking. And Lucrecia found a way, basically in going to her native province, Salta, north of Buenos Aires, where she invented a way of speaking because she mixed local non-actors, and she had like two big stars who somehow fitted into that mixture of different ways of speaking. But so in Salta, in the north of Argentina, people speak very differently to the way they speak here. But by not making a point about this sort of local accent or local color, just using it, I think Lucrecia was playing very much in the spirit of, you know, our great writer Jorge Luis Borges, who has always said that you know, your nationality comes inevitably. You don't have to play at being an Argentine if you are. Lucrecia Martel made this very Salta-based film, her hometown, and yet she invented a name for Salta. La Ciénaga, the swamp, does not exist. So it's a little bit like an invention, like, I guess, Faulkner, you know, or, I mean, there's a whole tradition, especially in literature, of being very specific and very true to a place and conveying this sense of place, and yet doing so in a kind of imaginative way. I think Lucrecia is a very literary writer in the best possible sense. For La Ciénaga, she wrote this 200-page script, which I think they filmed half of it. They were never able to finish it. But in the script itself, there were so many descriptions and so much concentration on mood and climate and relationship between the characters, that then when she went to actually shoot this script, she could basically just throw it in the bin, and she had already created a world which she could then inhabit. This kind of sprawling family and sprawling house, I think, gives the impression that this world that we are witnessing, this world of La Ciénaga, the swamp, actually it doesn't ever end. And I think this is something that maybe she learned from literature, where, you know, there's always the detail speaks of a wider thing. And you never think of the scenes in La Ciénaga as scenes. I think you see them as like fragments of something. And I think this also has to do with her filmmaking skills, her intelligence in cutting. It's like she creates these scenes which seem almost like from a home movie, almost documentary, and then she cuts before you expect the scene to end, and you're into something else. And so again, it's the feeling of a whole complex world that you've been sort of thrown into and are somehow privy to. Even this quality of sound, this oral language that we find in Lucrecia's films, it's not just in the dialogues. I think it's in the whole structure of the film. And this is something that she herself has talked about. The fact that she says her whole inspiration for making films was in the siesta, when in the provinces like Salta, people stop at lunch and go to sleep during the afternoon. And then the kids are kind of marooned, and of course they don't go to sleep, but they're supposed to keep quiet. And so her grandmother had the task of telling them stories to keep them quiet. And she says that these stories and the way that her grandmother would tell these stories are at the heart of her filmmaking.
Mire, doctor, yo no sé qué hacer con este perrito porque parece que se me ha comido todos los gatos. A ver, señora, apóyelo en la camilla. El veterinario se da vuelta, agarra un hacha que tenía colgada en la pared, lo parte al perro al medio. La señora se acerca y ve que tiene una cantidad increíble de dientes, como 2 filas de dientes. El veterinario le dice: no es un perro, señora, es una rata africana.